Some people change history on a battlefield. Others do it in palaces. But sometimes history is made around a simple workbench. The story of Aquila is a story like that. A story of quiet faithfulness, hard work, and the kind of courage that never makes headlines, but changes lives forever. Aquila was a Jew, born in the distant land of Pontus, a region along the Black Sea. Life had taken him far from his homeland, all the way to the great city of Rome, the beating heart of the empire. There, he lived with his wife Priscilla, a woman whose strength and wisdom were matched only by her devotion to God. Together they made tents, a humble trade, but one that provided for their needs and gave them a front-row seat to the hustle and bustle of Roman life. But Rome wasn't always kind to those who didn't fit in. In the year 49 AD, Emperor Claudius issued a decree expelling all Jews from Rome, blaming them for civil unrest. One day, Aquila and Priscilla found themselves packing up everything they owned, forced to leave the city they had called home. Where would they go? What would they do? They settled in Corinth, a bustling port city in Greece, a city known for its wealth, trade, and immorality. Life wasn't easy, but Aquila and Priscilla did what they always did. They worked hard, trusted God, and opened their home to others. Then one day, everything changed. A man named Paul arrived in Corinth, a traveling preacher, a tent maker like them. He needed a place to stay, and Aquila and Priscilla welcomed him in without hesitation. What started as a simple act of hospitality turned into a life-changing partnership. For a year and a half, Paul lived with them, working alongside them by day and preaching the gospel by night. Imagine the conversations around their table, the prayers, the teachings, the dreams for the growing church. Together, they became not just business partners, but co-workers in the gospel. But Aquila and Priscilla's story didn't stop in Corinth. When Paul left for Ephesus, they went with him. And it was in Ephesus that they played one of the most pivotal roles of their lives. One day, while attending the synagogue, they heard a man named Apollos preaching. He was passionate, eloquent, and mighty in the scriptures, but his understanding of the gospel was incomplete. Aquila and Priscilla could have easily dismissed him or publicly corrected him. But instead, they did something far more powerful. They invited him into their home. In that quiet, private setting, they gently explained the way of God more accurately. They filled in the missing pieces, telling Apollos about Jesus and the full gospel. Apollos listened, his heart open, and from that moment, his ministry was never the same. He went on to become one of the most powerful preachers of the early church, all because Aquila and Priscilla had the courage to teach in love. But their story doesn't stop there. Years later, we find them back in Rome, hosting a church in their home. Yes, a church in their home. While emperors built temples to honor their own names, Aquila and Priscilla built something far greater in their living room. A community of believers, bound together by faith in Jesus Christ. Paul never forgot them. He called them my fellow workers in Christ Jesus, who risked their lives for me. Romans 16 verses 3-4. It's a simple sentence, but it speaks volumes. Somewhere along the way, Aquila and Priscilla had faced danger, real danger, for the sake of the gospel. They were tent makers by trade, but kingdom builders at heart. They didn't preach from pulpits or command armies, but their home was a refuge. Their hands were always ready to serve, and their hearts burned with a passion for God's church. So, when you think of Aquila, don't just think of a man stitching tents under the hot Corinthian sun. Think of a man who built more than tents. He built people, churches, a movement. His story is a reminder that God does extraordinary things through ordinary people who are willing to open their homes, their hands, and their hearts. And let his story challenge you. What are you building with your life?